So welcome back, everybody. I'm Ryan Niemiec and here with Ruth Pierce, and we are representing the VIA Institute on Character. And we are here with you and for you in this United in Strengths community. And this is our time to breathe, to remember what's best in us, and to connect with one another. And so we'll continue today, which is focused a little bit more on the family, more on who you're living with, which is our Wednesday sessions. And this is our theme also of character strengths. So today we're going to talk about a strength that is almost never talked about in positive psychology. In fact, I've never heard anybody ever present on it. And there's almost no research on it. And so it's the strength of gentleness. And gentleness is certainly a strength of character, but it's not in the VIA classification because it's a compound strength. At least that's the term that we use at VIA, is it's a compound strength, meaning that it is, rather than it just being explainable just as it is, you need to combine several strengths to explain it. So we also think of these kinds of things as character strengths constellations. So mindfulness is the same way. Mindfulness at its essence, according to science, is two character strengths. As you all know, we've talked about this a lot. It's self-regulation and curiosity. The strength of grit is a popular word these days, but if you look at actually the questions on what measures grit, it's perseverance and curiosity with a little dash of maybe love of learning. And so we could take that same character strength combination approach to a lot of other words like respect, responsibility, patience, tolerance, the propensity to apologize, and on and on. And many of these have, all those I just mentioned have at least some research on it. Gentleness, another compound strength, just does not have much on it. So we're going to reflect on this. I'll share some examples. I'll, of course, point it back to you. And perhaps we'll come out of this experience a little bit more aware of this beautiful, wonderful quality called gentleness, with a little deeper understanding, a little bit more capacity to tap into our own gentleness, to be able to bring forth to our loved ones right now at this time when they probably need that soft touch of gentleness. So see if you resonate with any of these thoughts on what gentleness is. So gentleness is seen in the handling of adversity with a calm even-handedness. It's seen in the soft nature of how people act with others. It's witnessed in the reverence for wildlife and all forms of life. It's observed in the slow turn of one's head to feel the wind against your cheek. It's the getting down on one knee to listen to a child and look them in the eye when they're saying something to you. When you have to carry 3 eggs like I did recently in one hand across the room, balancing them, holding them carefully, that's where you will find gentleness. And then you'll see gentleness when you carefully walk around the eggshells of a sensitive or difficult topic. It's there in the lightness of a feather sitting in the palm of your open hand. It's there in the calm look in someone's eyes after they've yelled at you. It's the steady, comfortable smile someone gives as they operate under intense pressure on their job. It's that slow, mindful walk of that person amidst a bustling, loud, vibrant city street. It's present in the inner silence that we have at any time of wonder or struggle or boredom. The inner silence. It's there when someone is listening to another person's pain. Gentleness is there holding that suffering. So those are some ways that I think about gentleness. And then I am reminded for some reason this morning of I was coaching my son's basketball team this past season, and I was the head coach, so the person responsible for all these kids. And actually, that's why I'm wearing this shirt here today is my the basketball shirt and outfit and clothes and socks and everything. For some reason, I wanted to wear those clothes today. I haven't worn them in many months, and so I think it was perhaps to be able to give this example, I guess. So I constantly had to, as a basketball coach, be reining in and managing a bunch of very rambunctious 8 and 9-year-old boys who are very hyper, and many of them not good at listening and just wanting to run. And as I thought back to the coaching experiences, there's no way that if I was gentle the whole time, there's no way that I could have reined them in. So sometimes I had to be very fiery and zestful. Sometimes I had to be very direct and imprudent about setting the certain boundaries. But then for these little boys, they did need that soft touch of gentleness too. They needed that kindly way, that peaceful way, that gentleness when explaining something, when showing something new, when getting down at their eye contact to hear why they're upset about something. So gentleness wasn't all the time. We don't want to think about this strength or any of these strengths as constant and all the time, and you've got to use them perfectly. Even we wouldn't even see them as always in a certain situation. Like if you're listening to a friend, you're not going to always do it with gentleness. If you're working with a sensitive colleague, it's not always going to be gentleness. If you're at school teaching, you're not always going to do it gently, even if that's kind of your way. It's not going to always be that way, but in these moments. So I had to find various moments to be gentle with the kids. So that's kind of one of the things I wanted to make the point of, is that it's found in moments. So then let's unpack this quality called gentleness a little bit. If we break it down by the different character strengths, and so just to remind you, this is my perspective and not a scientific perspective. It's not a scientific finding because there isn't any science on gentleness. In fact, I couldn't even find a single test assessment measure of gentleness, or even an optimal definition. So if there is any researchers out there and you want to study gentleness, I'm happy to collaborate with you and to kind of figure this out. But it would start there, of really defining it well and then measuring it and then looking at what character strengths are connected to it. But I'll still take a shot at some of this. And this comes also from reading philosophical perspectives on gentleness and theological. It's written a lot in theological circles, gentleness is. So this isn't just kind of out of thin air. It's kind of an informed approach, and talking to different leaders who do this kind of work. So hopefully it's a little bit of an informed perspective. So I think it falls nicely under the virtues of humanity and temperance. And since it's a compound strength, it's going to be under compound virtues and not just one virtue, most likely. So there's a humanity element to it, of this one-to-one connecting with people, and then there is a self-control element to it with the temperance piece. So if I was to name the specific strengths, the three that I think are strongest are humility, kindness, and forgiveness. Humility, because if we think about gentleness, I think a big descriptor of it would be the person as being down to earth. They're kind of grounded and down to earth as a gentle soul. And that would be humility. Gentle people seem to know how and when to often quiet their ego. which is humility as well. So they're able to pause that ego's needs to do more and to be better than other people, or to compete and to elevate oneself and so on, but instead to softly put the attention on the other. And then, of course, kindness would be in there as well. That softness, that thoughtfulness, that other-orientedness toward other people that gentleness is, that's the kindness part of it, in my view. And then there is this temperance part that I would call forgiveness of gentleness, where there is this letting go, that a person who's being very gentle isn't letting things harbor them and weigh them down. They're walking kind of on air. They're walking slowly and peacefully, and they're not being weighed down by their own baggage or by others' baggage. So that means they're forgiving. They're letting go. They're not taking things too seriously if this person irks you for some irritation. So those are the main ones, I would say, like the higher order combination for gentleness. And then I would say there's some other ones that are important too. I think social intelligence is really important, because there's an empathy part of gentleness, where we're putting the attention on the other and listening to their needs, wanting to pay attention to their emotions, being grounded in your own emotions. I think another kind of second level strength here would be love, because a lot of people will describe gentleness as tenderness. And so there's a tenderness, there's a sweetness that kind of goes beyond kindness to a deep love. And then there's something about an open-mindedness, a receptivity, that when I talk to people that are very gentle, they're just like this. They're just so open, and they want to hear from you. It's almost like there's not a mean bone or a critical bone in their body. They just want to hear from you, and they're open and receptive. And so what strength is that? Openness, receptivity, open-mindedness. You can argue that as judgment critical thinking, actually, because you're being open-minded, you're accepting, you're hearing all points of view. The person with judgment critical thinking is very good at, they might be very strongly political or religious, but they're equally open to hearing other people's views without judging. And so there's that judgment critical thinking part of gentleness, or you could perhaps argue that it's curiosity, because curiosity is very much about being open and questioning and exploring. So those might be kind of secondary kind of strengths. So those are some initial thoughts, and who knows, maybe someday research will completely debunk everything I just said, or maybe it'll support some of it. And I think perseverance is kind of a natural piece in there too, because we have to persevere with the softness, persevere with that particular steadiness. The gentle person is kind of steady as they walk and listen and talk, even though they're not gentle all the time and perfectly gentle, but they're persevering in some way with that approach, with that humility. So, as I said, there isn't any research to support what I just said, but as I looked into this, again, there are really, I think there's no good studies actually on gentleness that really look specifically at gentleness in this way. Again, there's philosophical meanderings about it, but there is one study done by David Holman in medical care settings, actually. And this study is not a peer-reviewed published study, but it's a scholarly study. At least it's not peer-reviewed published to my knowledge. And what they did is they looked at nurses and other care workers, so also maybe very appropriate at this time, and studied gentleness in them. And so the way they described gentleness as, kind of like we're saying, was soft and slow. And they described a number of different behaviors. We always want to look to the behaviors for these character strengths. It's not enough to just think creatively or to think kindly or to think bravely. It's about acting. That's what character is. It's about not just being these wonderful, amazing character strengths, these 24, but also putting them into action. It's the doing of it that really matters. And so they, I think correctly, were really trying to look at, well, the behaviors of gentleness among these particular staff. It won't be true for all staffs being gentle, but for these nursing care staffs, they described examples like speaking in a soft and quiet manner, softly touching the hand of the patient or the lower arm, keeping an open posture, not crossing our arms. They described the behavior sitting or crouching down to talk with the clients. And they also described the behavior of generally not rushing around to the other kinds of, run from this patient to this patient. No, I can't talk to you anymore. I got to go to this person and see. I'm talking a little bit faster. I'm moving my hands, and this doesn't seem very gentle as we're running around, moving around. Of course, we need to do that sometimes. So that's why we're not gentle all the time. We might need to move from that soft gentleness to speedy, zesty. And, they found that this approach helped the clients to feel more comfortable, to be cared for. It helped the staff to, this gentle approach helped the staff to help the clients to do certain decisions, like getting clients to eat or helping them out of bed, helping them to take their medicine, giving comfort, and so on. And probably many of you who maybe have never worked in like a nursing care setting or medical setting can still relate to all those examples because you've cared for your ailing mother or father or a loved one in your house right now, and you probably have tapped into gentleness a lot of the time. Some of the time, a lot of the time. They looked at, these researchers also looked at what's going to help to foster more gentleness. And they found, having lower kind of workloads, not as much demandingness on the person, having more staff to be able to spread out so that each person can take their time with person, and then being, reminded of the importance of care and gentleness is an important factor kind of to enable gentleness in that sense. So if we look at, they kind of found like these different types of gentleness, and so I'm going to reframe them in terms of character strengths. So they found that you can be there's like a gentle curiosity. So the gentle questioning and softness as you're connecting with that patient. Gentle social intelligence. So that's where they're trying to persuade the other person to do something, to eat or to get up and walk and move, but doing it gently. And then gentle care, gentle kindness would be the other type. So we learn about gentleness, I think, by doing things like this, thinking about it, talking about it. We're going to have a meditation on it in a moment. But also by observing people, by seeing their way. And that word does apply really well, the way. So the people who are gentle seem to have a way about them, don't they? A gentle way. We wouldn't say that about all the strengths, like, oh, he has a prudent way about him, but with gentleness, it just fits really well that person that I remember from several years ago, they just had a gentle way about them. It's in their demeanor. It's in how they talk about things. It's in how they react to problems. Some people use the phrase similarly of gentle souls. Oh, he or she is a gentle soul. And somehow that word gentleness captures it better than saying they're a kind soul or they're a forgiving soul or a loving soul. The person who actually brought this word to my attention, not that I hadn't heard it before, but made me think about it more deeply, was a very liberal-minded priest. His name is Father Dave Krause, who's since passed away. He's the person that actually got me doing mindfulness retreats back around the year 2000, 2001, where I would lead all-day retreats to people in the community, open to anybody. And he had a gentle way about him. I would describe that would be his best characteristic would be gentleness. He walked slowly and softly. He spoke calmly. I never saw him with reactivity to stress. And he signed his emails, Gentleness, Father Dave. So it was that was his way, was to be gentle. when are you gentle? When are you more likely to be harsh and tense? We learn about gentleness from its opposite as well as from what it is. So I want you to think about that, and I'll share it and then move into the meditation. So for me, I'm more gentle. Again, not all the time, but I can find gentleness when I'm mindful of what's going on with my kids, especially when I'm savoring. Remember, prolonging the positive, sitting there and savoring what's going on and what they're saying to me or what they're demonstrating to me. And I'm kind of there as a gentle listener and responder, connector. And I'll say that I'm less gentle, not gentle, more harsh, more quick, more fast. Gentleness is far off over here somewhere when I feel so many projects weighing down on me. And maybe I have that all the time, projects weighing down on me, but I'm getting more lost in the projects, more stressed. I don't know about what to do about this one or this one, and then these other 3 I needed to do today, and then these other 4 coming up, and it's all coming at me, and it's not clearly being mapped out and organized and handled. That's when I become more ungentle, if we're to make up a new word. So think about when you're gentle and when you're not gentle. So for this meditation, I want to invite us to do something that we've not done before, which is to use our bodies a lot. And so I'm going to invite us to go through a series of actions with our bodies, and you obviously can choose what to do or not to do, what you're comfortable with. It'll involve our body, mind, and speech. So kind of a complete look at gentleness, or a more complete look. So we're pursuing the soft and the slow. So one of the things that I'll ask you to do, I want to just give you the heads up on it, is at one point I will invite you to put your head below your heart, as if to be very humble and to not put the intellect and the thinking, but to put the heart first. So to symbolically, but in this case literally, which is powerful to do, put your head below your heart. And so we'll get to that, but I wanted to give you the heads up, so to speak, or heads down actually, that would be what we're going to be doing. And so you need to evaluate whether that's medically okay for you to do that action. So that's for each person's decision, not mine. So let's start by feeling each breath, the gentleness of your in-breath and out-breath. And can you notice the softness of this inhale and exhale? Embodying the slowness of this next inhale for you. And the slowness of this next exhale. So embodying the softness and slowness of gentleness right now. And see about feeling the earth. Touch the earth with your feet if you aren't already, whether you're standing or sitting. Notice yourself touching the ground. Feel connected and grounded to it. Feeling that sense of gravity pulling you there. Grounded. Touching the earth. And tell your ego, that part of you that might be driving you to do this or that, or control this or control that, putting certain things about yourself above helping others, all the different ego drives and instincts and pushes. Tell your ego right now, even out loud, speak more quietly. Quiet down, you could say to the ego. Yes, I want to hear you. But don't be so controlling. Don't be so all-encompassing. Quiet, please. And I want to invite you to take one of your hands and to just lightly touch, ever so gently touch your skin on your cheek, on your hand, ever so gently. Notice what that feels like to be gentle in this way to yourself. Feeling that gentleness. And if you're comfortable with it, I want to invite you to place your head below your heart for about 10 seconds. And notice what it's like to literally and symbolically prioritize your heart. Putting your heart as the priority. Letting go of tension. Letting go of any other lingering tension in your body. The gentle release of whatever you're holding on to, your body. The gentle release of anything you're holding on to mentally. A gentle release of anything you're holding on to emotionally, your feelings. Letting go. Letting go so you can come back to just this breath. Back to just the reality of this breath in this moment. Even the opening of your eyes can be done with gentleness, slowness, deliberate gentleness.